Here's a video by Adam something. It's he's one of the biggest leftist / statist YouTubers, and he's got like over 100 million subscribers. And as for views, he's got over 100 million views, and he has something to say.
Imagine suffering
Anarcho-capitalism / free market capitalism, but you know. So let's see what he has to say. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be good.
A plane crash above the ocean with only you and one other passenger surviving. Both of you get washed up on a deserted island with nothing but sandbanks and palm trees. Once you wake
He looks pretty happy. Or somebody just crashed.
up on the shore and look around, you notice the other survivor's footprints. Looks like he woke up before you. As you explore the island, you find him sitting on a huge pile of coconuts. Turns out, while you were unconscious, he went around and collected every single coconut on the island for himself. Coconuts that you would also need if you don't want to starve. Of course, you could go and try your luck catching some fish along the shore, but according to statistics, 9 out of 10 starved fishermen end up dying of hunger in the end. The coconuts are your only realistic chance at survival. So you ask him, can you give me some coconuts, please? And he says, sure, I can give you some coconuts. If you suck my dick.
I highly doubt that would be the arrangement for someone to buy coconuts off of someone, is to suck their dick. I mean, does money not mean anything? Does basic barter of something else, like fish, not mean anything? To Adam something, does that not exist? Do other plants and you know, fruit derived from them, produce derived from them not exist, or other products? I mean, come on now. I mean, I guess someone could do that for coconuts, but I'm pretty sure, based on basic trade trends, they'd rather do something else, like just barter. Alright, so let's go on.
You are faced with a conundrum. Do you suck the coconut man's dick? Let's keep this question in mind for later.
And could he possibly get all the coconuts himself? Because it's a big-ass island from what we're seeing. Seems like there'd be some coconuts available for you to harvest that aren't his, but okay.
My political views, and consequently my urban planning and transit views, are all informed by one overarching value. I want as many people as possible to live the best lives they can with the largest possible degree of freedom. In practice, this means that every adult person should be free to do whatever they want as long as they don't harm others physically, mentally, or financially. And just
so basically just leave each other alone. The NAP non-aggression principle. That kind of thing, okay.
Clarify, I am pro-choice. I don't think the fetus is a full-fledged person, so the mother's interests should take priority. So as a freedom-loving person, it should be self-explanatory that I support ideologies such as free market capitalism or even anarcho-capitalism, right?
Yeah.
So what do these two ideologies entail?
They're both the same thing. If it's truly free market capitalism, it's anarcho-capitalism. If it's truly anarcho-capitalism, it's free market capitalism. Why are you making this false dichotomy?
Market capitalist system, the economy operates with very little to no government intervention. Now keep...
Okay, if it's true free market capitalism, it has no government intervention. If it has, like, government intervention, that'd be more like a mixed economy, which I went over in a previous video of mine. And that would make it more of a minarchy, which isn't quite capitalism, or if it's just minimal government, or maybe even a corporatist economy. Whatever, let's just go on.
Keep in mind that we're only talking about the markets here. In every other aspect of life, the government can be very much repressive.
If there's no government, it's free market capitalism. And if it's free market capitalism, there's no government, there's no state, period, to control other aspects of your life. What is this guy saying?
For example, even totalitarian dictatorships can be free market, or at least lean towards it. In contrast,
No, they can't.
Anarcho-capitalism is a...
If it's a tyrannical dictatorship, it's not anarcho-capitalist by definition. It's more like fascism or communism or corporatism. It's not anarcho-capitalism, I'm sorry.
System without a government, or at least a centralized institution able to effect coercion on you. Everything is left up to the free market and the people's self-organization. And I'm here to make the case that within a short amount of time, both systems would devolve into a horrifying authoritarian dictatorship.
Okay, what evidence do you have for that? You know, it's like, oh, free market, people can defend themselves, protect themselves, buy and sell as they please, as long as they aren't harming another person, and that somehow makes tyranny? I mean, come on.
But how come these two ideologies would bring about the exact things they are designed to alleviate, namely oppression and coercion? Let's take a look, first at free market capitalism. And my question to you is your workplace democratic? And by...
It doesn't have to be democratic. I mean, if it is, okay, as long as it's voluntary democratic, but it doesn't have to be democratic by force, and it can't be because it's true free market capitalism. So it's, keep going.
That I mean, do you as an employee have a say in how your workplace is run? Well, not really, right? Maybe in like a very small business, but even then you don't have any say in the meaningful decisions. Like if there's, say, 5 of you working at a small restaurant as...
How do you know that? Like, I mean, if a business is really open to suggestions by its employees, or even like, giving out benefits to its employees for working there, how can it not be open to suggestions that much? Anyways, let's go on.
As waiters, you can ask the owner to, for example, rearrange the tables a bit, because right now the layout is super inconvenient to navigate with a bunch of plates in your hand, but the outcome of that request is still completely determined by the goodwill of the owner. They can say, yeah, sure, how do you want to organize the tables? Or, nope, sorry, the layout is good the way it is. And for me, this is like a little chiefdom, if you will. It's a...
I mean, they could say no, but they could also note the incentive and pragmaticism of rearranging the tables in such a way that it makes it easier / more efficient and / more effective for the waiters and waitresses to serve food to the customers and possibly be more productive and earn them more money in the first place. I mean, in the process. So yeah, they could say no, but it's not likely. They're more likely to say yes, because hey, better productivity, more money. Yeah.
Small community, you get the chief running things, and everyone can just go and petition the chief personally if they want to. But see, the outcome of the request is still determined completely by the chieftain. Even if all 5 of you go to them and say, so here's a petition, all 5 of us have voted to rearrange the table layout, the chieftain can still go, yeah, I disagree with that, so too bad. We end up with a system where the will of the...
I mean, they could, but they're more likely to say yes than no.
People will be taken into account if, and only if, A, the leader is a nice person, B, the leader is afraid that some of the subordinates might quit and so they will need to spend more time and money on additional recruitment, or C, the leader believes that the new table arrangement would lead to more efficient work and so the business would make more money. So,
and they can be all 3, and even if they're not A, if they're like still 2, I mean if they're still B and C, they can still make it work, they can still say yes to it, or even if they're just like B or just C, they can do that.
So here, whether the will of the people will be taken into account depends on A, personal kindness, B, fear of losing money, and C, the promise of more money. So as you can see, this is not exactly the perfect recipe for freedom. So what happens?
Look, we're talking about a workplace here. We're not talking about like the employee's life at large. We're talking about simply, does the boss want to take an employee suggestion? That's it. It's not like how an employee lives their life in general, like what they do outside of work. You know, what are their hobbies? Do they smoke a plant? You know, do they do drugs? Do they party? Do they own guns? You know, do they... You know, those are more about the employee's freedom than just, oh, whether or not the boss listens and executes a suggestion to make the workplace better. I don't see how that really is a disaster to freedom or something that kind of impedes it. I don't get it.
In a bigger business with more employees, big business takes the concept of chiefdom and upgrades it to a totalitarian dictatorship.
Okay, chiefdom, totalitarian dictatorship. Probably should say so. It's neither of those. It's how a business is run. It's not how an employee's life is run or a whole territory of land is run. Just how the business and just how it's run. That's it.
As Bob Black wrote in his essay The Abolition of Work
is a mockery of freedom. The official line is that we all have rights and live in a democracy. Unfortunately, okay, this is already starting out really stupid. Other enforced aren't free. We all have to live in police states. These don't be orders. I don't know. 40s, push them around and ask what don't hire homes. That's what we punish. Okay, look. Work isn't a mockery of freedom. It's just doing labor that leads to a productive outcome. Like you get paid, / you make goods and or services. And you get profit from your business as an employer, and you get profit as an employee from being paid your wages, which are an expense from your employer for hiring you. How is that mockery of freedom? And plus, we all have to work, otherwise we die. Out of circumstance, not a law, circumstance. If nobody does anything, no food gets made, no water gets made or cleaned out, no shelter, housing gets made, no guns get made to protect yourself. Nothing happens if nobody works. Okay? So, this whole working isn't real, it's a mockery thing is really stupid. And the whole, we all have rights and live in a democracy. Okay, yeah, we do have rights, but democracy isn't about rights. It's about violating those rights. It's government. It's tyranny of the majority. It's people being able to vote your rights away. Voting away your rights shouldn't be on the table at all. Because your rights, no, it's not something you vote on. It's just something you have the right to, hence it being a right. These victims obey orders or else, no matter how arbitrary. These authorities come under regular surveillance. Yeah, that's pretty much democracy, but
makes it.
Sorry. The officials push them around are only answering the higher ups, public or private. Either way, this isn't. Okay, that's government then. That's not free market capitalism. That's government. That's democracy. Or at least a form of that's democracy. So, what's this guy even saying?
The mockery of freedom. The official line is that we all have rights and live in a democracy. Other unfortunates who aren't free like we are forced to live in police states. These victims obey orders or else, no matter how arbitrary. The authorities keep them under regular surveillance. State bureaucrats control even the smaller details of everyday life. The officials who push them around are answerable only to higher-ups, public or private. Either way, dissent and disobedience are punished. Informers report regularly to the authorities. All this is supposed to be a very bad thing. And so it is, although it is nothing but a description of the modern workplace. A great example of this is when major corporations try to prevent workers' unions from forming, also known as union busting. A practice that is illegal, mind you, but they still do it anyway.
Okay, well, let me start off by saying a corporation is technically a governmental thing. I mean, because to be a corporation, you need a corporate license. So it's like a government-sanctioned entity, basically. You know, it interacts with government. Without government, you have no corporations, because you have no government to grant you a corporate license. And all you could possibly be is a big company. So I just thought I'd get that out of the way. Because that is relevant to the topic of, oh, evil corporations or evil big companies. Well, they're corporations because of government, okay? And in Kapistan, you have no corporations. So you don't have to worry about any of the baggage comes with corporations because, hey, they don't exist because government doesn't exist to grant them licenses. Anyways, union busting. Yeah, I think a company is well within its right to not allow unions, but are people going to want to work for a company if there isn't like a, you know, a checks and balances on power, such as a union, to like stop the employers from making the company suck for the employees or customers or whatever? I mean, unions can help if they're voluntary, actually get shit done to make the company better and then negotiate deals and all that jazz. I don't think a government banning them is really the way to go about them. Like, I mean, well, a government making employers have to have them is the right way to go about them. I think that's more of a free market incentive to do. I mean, if a government does union enforcement or whatever, it's basically telling another person how to run their company, which they don't really have a right to do. And companies should be able to choose unions or not. So on a moral ground, it isn't right. On a pragmatic ground, that doesn't seem to really work either, because even if you make it So a company has to allow union making. I don't. If they didn't want to have unions in the first place, I don't see them being that keen on like listening to their unions, because well, they didn't want them in the first place. I can't see them like really cooperating with them that much. So it's better to. So if you want to do any pressure in a company to have a union, it's better to have it be like free market incentive. Like if you don't allow employees to really have a say through a union, then we won't work for you. That kind of thing.
For example, have you heard about this company called Tesla and its owner, Elon Musk? And to quote from a Vox article titled "Elon Musk Broke US Labor Laws on Twitter," Tesla tried many different tactics to stop workers from
Okay, let's look at this a bit. Okay, if a company is gonna fire its employees just for trying to like, you know, spread ideas about how things should be run better, right? That's a really dumb company. And if people stop working there because of said dumbness, well, that's all in the company, and no government was required to make it fail. Or so, company doesn't have the right to violate its NAP towards employees, no matter how crappy or how good it is. So I don't see how this is really an argument against anarcho-capitalism. Anyways, go on.
Forming a labor union. Tesla workers distributing pro-union leaflets in the parking lot in their time off were harassed by 3 security guards. A supervisor later warned them that they could be fired for distributing those leaflets. Summoning the organizers into his office, Elon Musk illegally tried to dissuade the workers from forming a workers' union. And, as leaked emails have shown, the HR department tried to put the organizers into management so they won't be able to organize a union on the factory floor. And then, once again illegally, Tesla banned employees from wearing pro-union t-shirts and buttons. And also
okay, it just kind of goes back to an employer shouldn't have to have a union. I mean, if they agree to it and that agreement involves paying them, sure, but you know, to have it be all government enforced, that's not good.
Legally, Tesla fired one of the organizer's co-workers who criticized Tesla employees who spoke out against a union-backed bill. And then, repeat after me, illegally, Elon Musk tweeted out the following: "Nothing stopping Tesla team at our car plant from voting union. Could do so tomorrow if they wanted, but why pay union dues and give up your stock options for nothing? Our safety record is 2 times better than when the plant was UAW and everybody already gets healthcare." Okay. In other words, nothing stopping the peasantry in our kingdom from enacting democracy. Could do so tomorrow if they wanted. But why get your head chopped off for nothing? Law and order is 2 times better than when kingdom was under Louis XIII, and we already have the code Louis. Alright, so at this point, what real choice does the
Okay, company or Elon Musk, whatever, being a dick isn't similar to government at all. Because he doesn't like have a monopoly enforced arbitration. He doesn't like control the employees' outside lives. They're free to leave them. He doesn't make them not have guns or not have drugs or make them go to school or make them give up their property. This is just how he runs his company, even if it's a bit strict, stingy, petty, whatever. So I don't see how you can compare it to government, which does all those things I mentioned.
Employee have. Proponents of free market capitalism usually bring up the fact that the workers can just switch workplaces or, you know,
yeah, they can.
just move to another city. This is the freedom that workers have. But
I mean, yeah, there is a bit more nuance to that, but it definitely is an option. At least sometimes there is some circumstantial stuff that can make it so an employee could have to work for a company, but that would be circumstantial rather than legal. And if there's no competition, I can understand an employee still being employed with a bad company, but in anarcho-capitalism there'd be plenty of competition, so moving would most certainly be an option, or even giving exposing the company through the press. To try and get it to get its act together.
See it though. Changing your workplace is not an easy thing to do. I know.
True.
Because I've done it before. It's long, time-consuming, financially difficult. Chances are you'll be without a salary for at least a month, not to mention how stressful it can be. Not to mention, the older you get, the more difficult it will become to get hired. I know people personally who tried to change their jobs in their mid-40s. Despite them being super qualified with ton of experience, in a booming job market, it was still super difficult. Also, what if there's nothing for you to do in your area? What if you live in some small town in some flyover state with like one Walmart and 2 other workplaces? And you want to quit your current job because your employer wants to cut your salary to $5 per hour and increase your work hours to 16 hours per day. Because under free market capitalism, they are allowed to do that. Trust me. Quit your current job because your employer wants to cut your salary to $5 per hour and increase your work hours to 16 hours per day. Because under free market capitalism, they are allowed to do that.
Okay, that'd be really stupid because if you're paying employees less and making them work more, then that just leads to competition being able to do the opposite of that, having them work less for more, to entice them to work for them instead of the bad employer, instead of their competition. So not a smart move.
Trust me, there's a lot of things corporations would do under a free market system, like violating your privacy online or offline, or selling off your sensitive information for money. Speaking of...
Okay, look, NAP, non-aggression principle, with that, corporations can't do whatever they want with their employees. If they break contract, they could be sued in a private court. If they violate privacy, they could be like arrested by a private court. And at the very least, this would be bad for the company because the employees would leave, or very well could leave, and go to a company that doesn't do that shit, as well as expose the old company through the press.
Which today's video is sponsored by Atlas VPN. Atlas VPN is a tool that encrypts your data and hides your virtual location.
That's some free market monetization he's doing with a VPN. Atlas VPN. It seems like he's kind of like, I don't know, contradicting himself. He's against all this market stuff, yet he's endorsing the company,
thus protecting your privacy and allowing you to bypass region locks. With Atlas VPN, you're going to have access to all that content on stream the 3-year plan. This means you can subscribe to their services for just... and don't let region blocks stop you. Take advantage of this insane discount today. Thank you for checking out Atlas VPN. Ads like this help support the show. You will find my affiliate link down in the description. According to proponents of free market capitalism, if you are out of options, your main recourse is just to move to a different city. Now, of course, this can be a fine solution, but we cannot ignore just how destructive it can also be. Moving to a new area can be hugely stressful. I know because I've done it before. Not to mention, if you move from some flyover state to, say, a coastal state, you'll be leaving behind friends, family, acquaintances, i.e. you will lose your social safety net and you will lose your community. And this is
also potentially true.
Is made all the worse if you have, say, school-age children. You have to take them with you. That means leaving behind their school, their friends, hell, even maybe their boyfriends or girlfriends, the teachers they knew, the neighborhood they grew up in, maybe even the grandparents or other relatives who also live there. Now, I'm no child psychology expert, but I don't think for some reason that's particularly conducive for the child's development. The only group of people...
Yeah, that wouldn't be too good to just leave that way or leave on a whim.
Who would not be affected by the negative consequences of moving that much would be young adults between the ages of 18 and 25 who are hyper online, don't leave the house that often, and have very few to no real-life friends. And so let us now talk about anarcho-capitalism and what its proponents want to bring about. And so, as we discussed before, free market capitalism doesn't want government influence in the market. However, the state can be very much present in other aspects of life. For example, they can still provide public services and infrastructure next to the private ones.
Okay, that's not anarcho-capitalism if you have the state, period.
Anarcho-capitalism, however, in its primal form, is a stateless society in the market. However, the state can be very much don't leave the house that often and have about anarcho-capitalism and what its proponents want to bring about. And so, as we discussed before, free market capitalism doesn't want government influence in the market. However, the state can be very much present in other aspects of life.
Okay, no, it can't. Free market capitalism, anarcho-capitalism, same thing. no state period.
For example, they can still provide public services and infrastructure next to the private ones. Anarcho-capitalism, however, in its primal form, is a stateless society. There is no government. Everything depends on people's self-organization and the free market. All the functions that were performed by the government previously are now completely privatized, meaning you could live on your private property and freely contract with anyone else without any coercion, as long as they basically just don't mess with other people, also called the non-aggression principle. This means that technically you would be able to live a life of absolute freedom. Well, until the Amazon Gestapo shows up and tells you that you are now under the rule of holy Jeff Bezos I, and anyone opposing him will be decapitated in an Amazon warehouse, and their body parts will be sent to their family members as a warning in boxes with same-day Amazon Prime delivery. But hey, if you don't agree with this, you'll be perfectly free to start reciting the non-aggression principle until the firing squad officer tells you to shut the fuck up and keep digging. So
why the fuck would Amazon do all that crap? That makes no sense. It's like you're a freaking company that delivers products to people, and you're saying they'll basically be a brutal police force, government, you know, Gestapo organization. Like, where does that come from? This is anarcho-capitalism. This is a place where you have freedom, and you also have guns, and private security, and militias, and private military, and private police to protect you against such a thing that you suggested. This is weird, it's like...
I believe by now all of us can start seeing the problem. The fatal
No, because... I don't see how anyone could see the problem because they're saying stupid crap.
Flaw at the core of free market capitalism, and consequently anarcho-capitalism. Both ideologies seek to increase the power and influence of institutions that are autocratic in nature. Traditional corporations are set up like dictatorships. The owner has...
Yeah, corporations, which are given corporate licenses by government. This is government you're describing. This isn't anarcho-capitalism. Give me a break.
Absolute control, and the subordinates can only hold the owner accountable through a government, which in the...
Yeah, a government. That's not the... Governments aren't the only way to hold a corporation accountable. You can absolutely fight back with deadly force if they try to violate your liberties, so... You don't need a government to do that. You don't need a government to fight back or stand up to a corporation. You're acting like you do. So
the first world is a parallel, democratic, more powerful power structure, and so it can hold the corporate autocratic power structures accountable. If you get rid of it,
they wouldn't exist without government. I don't... They wouldn't exist without government. If they pop up anyway, you could fight back. What you're saying makes no sense.
Then the only game remaining in town will be the autocratic power structures, meaning they'll be the ones with ultimate control. In free market capitalism, they'll control the economy, and who knows, maybe more things by proxy. And in anarcho-capitalism, they'll control everything. And
you're not describing anarcho-capitalism at all. You're describing government, if anything.
Guess what? Coercion happens to be the central part of any autocracy. So if your goal is the lack of coercion, then free market capitalism or anarcho-capitalism should be the last things you would want.
No, they should be the only thing you want, because they don't have elitism like government does. They don't have a bunch of men and women in suits, aka the ruling class. They get to decide how you live your life, because they make the rules and they have people to enforce the rules. You don't have that with anarcho-capitalism. You don't have a war on drugs, truancy laws, gun control, eminent domain, all these wars, foreign wars, military-industrial complex. You don't have gerrymandering or civil asset forfeiture or criminal asset forfeiture or taxation even, which is basically what funds all these things in war. And you most certainly wouldn't have, you know, you wouldn't have, you know, corporatism, like, you wouldn't have all these bailouts, subsidies, lobbying, stimulus packages. You wouldn't have any of that, because there's no government for that shit.
And I'm confident in making this statement because coercion already exists in the current system, and it's not coming
Yes, and the current system is government, and that's where the coercion's coming
from the government. If your
Yes, it is.
only choice is to work some shitty job or be homeless, as is the case for millions of people, then I would say you are not really free. I mean, hey,
Okay, look. If it's due to circumstance, that isn't something you, like, blame on government or the lack of government. If it's due to government, blame it on government, of course. And a lot of it is due to government. I mean, government is a job killer with all the regulations like minimum wage, as well as zoning laws and tariffs and import laws. That's going to hurt the economy. So that's going to reduce jobs and businesses and working hours, increase the cost of products. That's not how you have freedom. That's not what leads to good circumstances of having competition and being able to work for other people. That's what leads to, like, potentially having to work for a shitty employer, because the government's driven out with so much competition, or made it hard to go to competition.
you do have the option to quit and be homeless, but is that really the type of freedom you would want? And
Well, if you got rid of government, you wouldn't have to worry so much about that due to the lack of government regulation, due to all this freedom and flexibility on who to work for and how to work for them, and just being free in general how to make a company, and just being free in general how to live your life.
so let us now circle back to the original question. Do you suck the coconut man's dick? Hey, you...
No. And chances are you wouldn't even have that as an option. It wouldn't, you just trade stuff for coconuts.
You're free not to, with dying of hunger as the consequence. And
like what? There's not other food on the island, not bananas, not berries, not fish or whatever. I think you mentioned fish a bit earlier, but
that, I believe,
coconuts are so only food, which is
to be coercion. If you want a system with the maximum possible amount of freedom and the minimum possible amount of coercion, then, if I were you, I would not base it on the current form of capitalism, a system...
Well, like I keep saying, one way or another, it's not capitalism. It's a mixed economy which has government in it, which makes it bad. I mean, when you have taxation, tax employees, tax employers to reduce their money, which reduces how much money they have to spend on other businesses and other employees and employers, yeah, it's gonna hurt the economy. And government's also gonna inflate currency, which it currently does, so, how is the government inflating currency a product of capitalism? Such a thing doesn't even happen in capitalism. Such a thing can't even happen in capitalism. I don't understand how
that is autocratic in nature. But I do think there is a solution, actually, namely workplace democracy. Give workers more control over their own workplace. Curtail the absolute power of business owners. Let workers democratically decide how profits will be allocated. So I would personally just give a tax break to any worker co-op firms and see if they work out.
Okay, if you're talking about government, workplace democracy, forget it, okay? Government's crap. People shouldn't have to be told how to run their places or how to work for their places. You don't even need a government for that.
Out. If they do, hell yeah, let's have more. If not, well, I guess we'll just have to figure out something else. But there are pretty successful examples already, so I have no doubt they would work out actually. Now, upon hearing this, you might ask, okay Adam,
what examples?
But if co-ops are so good and, better than traditional firms, how come we still have traditional firms? How come we haven't transitioned into worker co-ops? Well, consider the following. Just because a system is better, it doesn't mean that we will automatically transition to it.
I mean, this thing is right about, because look how long people have had statism, and how long it's taken to get to anarcho-capitalism. And governments existed, as I said before, in one way or another, for like 5,500 years. And before then, it was anarcho-capitalism, though it was more primitive, since, mankind as a whole is primitive, with things yet to be invented, with ways to invent things yet to be invented. It's taken a while to go back to the freedom people had back then with the technology of today. So yeah, it's taken a while. So yeah, it's hard to convince a lot of statists that anarcho-capitalism is the way to go. So this I can agree on. The whole, just because the system's better doesn't mean that we automatically adopt it. But the way he's framing it isn't good. I don't agree with that.
Prerequisites of capitalism existed centuries before capitalism itself, and I do...
No. Capitalism has basically existed ever since people had voluntary trade, which was over 100,000 years ago. I mean, it's not like any free market stuff today because they're so primitive, or it actually kind of is, but I mean, it's not nearly as productive, but it definitely could be considered capitalism.
You believe that the next step after late-stage capitalism, the system we have currently, would be co-op?
This isn't late-stage capitalism. This is a mixed economy. This is a mixed status economy.
Based capitalism. In any case, we need something new, and we need it now. And free market capitalism or anarcho-capitalism are just not going to cut it. They're just...
They will cut it. In fact, there's what people should have been having this whole time. It's time to go back to anarcho-capitalism, or free market capitalism, whatever you want to call it, and just be free and be prosperous, safe, and just. That's what people need. That's the different thing people need. Not statism, not a new state, not communism, fascism, democracy, constitutional republic, oligarchy, autocracy, constitutional monarchy, you know, socialism. That's not what people, that's not what people need. People just need freedom, and freedom is anarcho-capitalism.
Just more the same, and I believe we've all had enough of that already. You know,
I have had enough of the current system. And me wanting to go to anarcho-capitalism, or I want to go to anarcho-capitalism, that's a reflection of that.
Coconuts and all. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and
I dislike, but anyways.
Do check out my Patreon, link in the description, and I'll be seeing you next time.
So as you can see, this guy really doesn't know what anarcho-capitalism is. He acts like all these problems that are due to government are part of anarcho-capitalism, which has no government. I just can't. It's so weird. And he acts like government doesn't do what it does. He attributes it to no government. I don't understand. It's just really weird. He makes stuff up in that sense. Well, that's Adam something. He thinks that you know, that anarcho-capitalism is to be blamed for what government does. I know that's very stupid, but it's how he thinks and how he tries to sell, you know, anarcho-capitalism off as. So I guess that's all for now. You know, I hope to eventually get people free to anarcho-capitalism, of course, but, you know, for now, we're just gonna have to deal with status like this in terms of debunking and all that jazz. Bye.